What's up? How you doing? Here we are, Saturday night. Saturday Night Fever. Remember that movie? John Travolta there doing his little disco dancing. I remember him from the Sweat Hogs. Buchanan High. Love that show. That was a great show. I kind of went to a school that was similar. Anyway, I'll talk about that if I have to in a little bit. But I got some pure orange juice, not from concentrate. Company that makes this is Lakewood. It's tough to see there in the dark, but give it a good shake. All right. So for me, orange juice was the best beverage. I used to drink this stuff when I was a kid, not now. I don't have it that often anymore, but when I was a kid, my father would bring a half a gallon every day after work. He would stop at the little convenience store and he'd buy a half a gallon and he'd bring it, and then every so often I'd get up and pour a cup. So Saturday morning cartoons back then would come on, and I'd get up early in the morning, 7 a.m. I was watching the cartoons, and somewhere along the line I'd feel in my head I'm thirsty, so I'd go in the kitchen, I'd open up the refrigerator, and I'd grab a cup from the cabinet, and I'd pour. Like, was my the highlight of my day was having a beverage like that. So anyway, I'd have that, and we had Hood. That's what they sold in my grocery store. Hood was the company that made milk. It also made very good orange juice. But the company that I preferred was Tropicana. Tropicana was the premium orange juice. Now Hood was good, but Tropicana was 10 times better. And every once in a while, my father would end up in another neighborhood where the supermarket had Tropicana, and he would buy one of those, and I would finish that in half the time. So now I got, and Tropicana was also not from concentrate. So anyway, so we're gonna try this. Supposedly it's good. It better be good. This thing here is $9. And it is very good. I highly recommend this. Very tasty, pure orange juice, 100%. Really, really good. Wow, that's amazing. I think I'm gonna get this from now on. But $8, $8.99. It's all certified, USDA, organic, fresh. Yeah, I was a big consumer of orange juice. I drank more orange juice than anybody I know back then. And I'll tell you another thing. I was like probably in the second grade when this situation happened. So I had a really good friend back then. His name was Tony. And me and Tony, or Tony and I, hung around at the railroad tracks after school. So first, second, and third grade, we'd get off of school and we'd cross the field, and on the other side of the field were these old railroad tracks from the Civil War, but they were still operating. And we stopped there after school in those days, first, second, and third grade. We'd stop, make a pit stop there. We'd spend like an hour. Nobody cared where we were. Nobody asked, hey, how come you're late? Nobody even knew what time school finished. For all they knew, school finished at 3 and we were home at 3:30. But it didn't. So anyway, we'd spend an hour or so at the railroad tracks every day after school. Sometimes we'd go to the auto parts store, which was in my neighborhood. We were kind of like the local kids that would end up stopping there. They all knew us. So one day, my friend, he was always home alone. Home alone. His parents were working, and we'd end up at his house briefly. We didn't spend much time at his house, but one time he put down 2 glasses. He said, "You want some orange juice?" I said, "Yeah, sure." I put them down, and he put his to the top. He put mine to the top, and he said to me, "I'll race you." And at first I agreed, but he a little bit cheated. He grabbed his and started before I had a chance to pick mine up. And so by the time I picked mine up, he was 30% down. And I'm like, all right, so I didn't even try at that point. I wanted to sip mine and enjoy it. I didn't want to, chug it down. I wanted to sip it like I usually do, nice and slow, and enjoy it. But he drank it fast. He went boom, and he was done within like 5 seconds. And I said, okay, you win. And I think that time it was Tropicana. But this is exceptional. If you see Lakewood organic pure orange, grab it. You will not be dissatisfied. You will not be unhappy. You will be very, very pleased. Every once in a while I remember my friend Tony, and one thing I think about is how fast the years went by. I met him in the 1st grade, and we hung around up until the 3rd grade. And I thought we were going to be friends for life. We never had a fight. We never had an argument. We never had a falling out. None of that ever happened. But what did happen is I switched schools. I went to a better school, and he remained. So all those kids that were in that school that I met Tony, and they all continued on, and they graduated high school together. But me in the 3rd grade, I switched, and instead of kind of keep in touch, I guess today you would. With iPhones and stuff like that, you would constantly communicate. Not always. Sometimes, you just don't. But we didn't communicate anymore. I didn't call him, he didn't call me. And then, if that doesn't happen for the 1st year, you kind of grow apart and you don't see each other. So I really hung around with him up until the 3rd grade. When I went to the 4th grade, lost touch, even though he lived 3 blocks away from me. But just the way it ended up. And then periodically I would run into him, probably like maybe 3 or 4 times in my life that I've run into him since the 3rd grade. One time I ran into him at the mall. He was waiting for the bus there. We talked briefly. Another time I was at the arcade. This is like many years after that. I was at the arcade, and it was empty. It was just me and another kid, and then my friend Tony showed up. And I talked to him there for a brief period. We were playing games, and he was talking to me, he was like, what's going on, things like that. And he asked me if I wanted to ride home, and I said, nah, I'm all set. I'm walking home. I didn't live too far from there, so although the ride would have helped, but I didn't accept it. And then another time, I ran into him, but we didn't speak because it was at Home Depot, which I don't go to Home Depot rarely. I usually go to Lowe's. So he was there, and I was at a register waiting to cash out or buy stuff. And he had just come in, and he went to the left side and went to the back. And I saw him briefly, and that was the last time. And then, many, many years later, I decided I wanted to give him a call. So I found him on, I think, Facebook. And I told him who I was, and he was like very excited and happy, that we made contact again. And I asked him for his number, and I called him up, and we talked for probably an hour. We talked about all the old times, things we did, and to my surprise, my pleasant surprise, he has a very good memory. He remembered all those things that happened, and he was telling me how, he tells people how great his childhood was, which mine was also great. I had a really good childhood, very fun, a lot of playing, a lot of friends, and he remembered everything. He was telling me about all the details, and I was telling him details I remembered, and he was saying, oh yeah, I remember that. And then, you think you're going to keep in contact, but that was 15 years ago. So, That's what happens. You drift apart unless you try not to. And I guess we didn't really try not to. I'll tell you one thing that sticks out from those days, hanging around the railroad tracks. So this was after school. We would stay on the railroad tracks until the train would start coming. And then when the train was coming, we'd run and then jump off the side and then watch the train go by. A big, big old train with many, many cars on it. And so that particular day, we did that. And then I had a stick, kind of like this. And I was digging into the ground. Digging into the ground was a big thing back then. And digging, I went down about 1.5 feet. And all of a sudden, I started noticing that there were bottles buried, like alcohol bottles, things like clear alcohol, different types of bottles. I started pulling them out, and they were all with the seal on top and everything, and they were full of liquor, alcohol. So to this day we have no idea, and I mentioned that to him when I last spoke to him 15 years ago, and he said that he remembered that situation. So I don't know why those bottles were buried on the side there of the railroad tracks, but who knows how long they were there. They were glass, so could be there for a long time. LAPD. Anyway, Lakewood, remember the brand. I'm gonna pull a bit more. Remember they came up with that clever advertisement? Orange juice. It's not just for breakfast anymore. I was thinking you could do the same for cereal. So anyway, I'm about to grill some chicken because we're having fajitas tonight. Big fan of Mexican food. Love Mexican food. So I gotta get on the grill and do that, and then I'm doing some street corn. Anyway, that's it. Ciao.